Hey everyone, Jared James here, and welcome to episode 75 of Today with Jared James. As I always say, guys, if you enjoy this, do me a favor and subscribe on whatever platform you're on. Leave it a review, both a 5-star review and a written review. That helps us out a lot. And share it with someone else that you know will benefit from it. On today's episode, I'm going to talk about my advice for 2022, my advice for 2022. I should say welcome back to myself. It's been a while since we've shot a podcast. And honestly, guys, I've just been on the road like crazy, just many cities every single week. And one of the things that I've really kind of recommitted to for 2022 is getting a lot more content out to you guys, kind of clearing up a lot of the craziness of my life and just all the things that go on and all the there's a lot, guys. So, but I have committed to that. I mean, I heard from you guys on the road over and over, when's a new episode coming out? When's my favorite thing is your podcast? My favorite thing is YouTube. My favorite thing is your Instagram, whatever. So, getting back in, scheduling already for 2022 when all that different content's going to come out, shooting multiple episodes when I hit the road so that they're continually coming back out to you guys. So make sure that you're in our database. If you go to jaredjamestoday.com, if you're in there, just subscribe so that you can get our emails when I'm sending out the content. But best of all, guys, make sure you're subscribed on here so you know when something comes out. So I want to talk today about my advice for 2022. And this is always difficult because there's so many different things we could talk about. Like you could give 50 different points of advice, but I'm very specific with what I want to talk about today. I'm going to talk about, I think, 5 different things, unless I come up with something on the fly or I think of something that I don't want to talk about while I'm doing this. But for those of you that are kind of new to the podcast, I'm a little more informal in these, a little more myself, I'd say, a little more, I don't know, just a little different than maybe the other platforms. But the first thing I want to make sure we have is for 2022 is that we have a plan, which I know sounds so, generic and whatever. But, I've been telling audiences all over lately, like you don't get what you want in the coming year. You get what you are committed to and you have a plan for, period. Like it doesn't matter what you want, right? What are you committed to and what do you have a plan for? We did our business plan training with all of these people and it's great. You got like a 14-page business plan and then you got a digital plan. And the truth is that 14-page business plan that was given out, and I think you can still go check it out at jaredjamestoday.com / I want to say download. I think that's where it's at. But the business plan is really just to kind of focus you. It's just to kind of like, okay, what is it you should be focused on? What is your market like right now? Target in your marketing, like that kind of stuff. Because who on July 7th is looking at page 9 of their business plan? Probably not too many of you. But the overall idea of it is really just to figure out for that digital plan we gave you, like how many appointments does it take to hit your goals? How many appointments? We call those lead measures, right? There's lead measures and lag measures. And a lot of times people say, well, why aren't you focusing on number of closings? That's a lag measure because you don't always have control over that, right? You can deal with 10 people, have 3 of them close with you 1 week or 1 month. The next month you meet with 10 people, you have 8 of them close with you. You did the exact same as good of a job. It just so happens that, 1 closed a lot 1 month and 1 didn't. And, those were measures you couldn't really control, those lag measures. But lead measures, when you look at things like appointments, those are controllable. And when you know what those numbers are, they keep you on track. You know where you're at, if you're on track, they keep you accountable in that way, right? And so we do this with all of our people, and I recommend you do it too, is have a plan and know what those lead measures are, like the measures that equal the results. How many times have you guys heard me say, focus on results and you'll get frustration, focus on process and you'll get results? Lead measure is another way of saying process, right? When you don't like where your weight's at, you don't kick the scale and get mad at it. You got to focus on the brownies the night before. Like that's really where it's at, right? And so number 1 is have a plan. Focus on lead measures. You need to know what your lead measures, your number of appointments, those kind of things that you need to have on a weekly basis. So if it's 2 a week, sometimes Tuesday at 10 a.m., you've only got, you've got both your appointments set up and you're good for the week. You've scheduled 2. Sometimes Friday morning at 10 a.m., you've only got 1 set up for the week. And you know that you need to get to work and all of your activities need to revolve around creating that 1 appointment that gets you to 2. That's how you stay on track. And once you know what your number of appointments are, once you know what your lead measures are, now there has to be specified time in your calendar where you are actually focused on achieving that goal, that lead measure. So when do you have prospecting? When do you have networking? When do you have open houses? When do you have follow-up? When do you have SOI follow-up? Like when do you have that stuff? Because we're all busy. right? My son will tell you he's busy, like, and he doesn't even have any kids. He better not, right? Like if you don't have kids, you don't know what busy is. That's just the truth, right? But like, everyone will tell you they're busy. Everyone learns to be busy, right? But it's a matter of what you're doing. What you do actually matters. So you need to have a plan. The second thing I want to push for the coming year is just, create clarity. I put this out on Instagram the other day, but it's like one of the best things and one of the worst things in our world right now is the amount of content that is available. And there's a lot of it. And it's awesome. You can learn so much, you can do so much, but it's a lot, right? And, I said to an audience the other day, I said, Grant Cardone says debt is awesome, makes you rich. Dave Ramsey says all debt is bad. Which one's right? Because they're both millionaires. So like, which one's right? And the truth is they're both successful. They're both right, but they're also confusing if you're listening to both of them. And, you've got to understand like what season you're in, what stage you're in life, what voice speaks to you. Like when they speak, it makes you do something, right? If that's me, great, go all in. If that's someone else, go all in. But for God's sakes, guys, stop listening to so many voices, because what we're doing is we're listening to so many voices that are competing voices that we're just confused. And when we're confused, we don't act. Right? And so we need clarity. We need voices that speak to us and get us into motion and get us into action. While there might be all these other great ideas, but if they're competing, you're just confusing yourself. So make 2022 that year that you really create clarity in your vision, clarity in your goal, clarity in your plan, and clarity in the voices that you're listening to. That is the one where I see people miss it the most. The third thing I want you to do for 2022, I want you to do stuff that makes you happy. Oh man, that's a big one. Do stuff that makes you happy. I went through a lot of different stuff this year, some of which I just went public with. But you got to do stuff that makes you happy. Like it is amazing to me. I just got back from my yearly guys trip to Tulum. I did a podcast on this last year talking about that experience and what it meant. And it is amazing to me how many people are conforming to the opinions of those around them, the opinions of the people around them, that don't have to live with the consequences of those decisions. Like, think about that. The number of people, the number of you listening to me right now that are conforming to the opinions of the people around you, to those people who don't have to live with the consequences of those decisions that you're making, is mind-boggling to me. When you see me doing my guys' trips to Tulum and doing those kind of things, I just came to a conclusion where I'm like, I need to do things that make me happy. I do so much for other people, and my whole life is built around giving to others and just giving into their lives and providing them with things. And it's always about that. It's always an exchange that goes from one way to the other, right? It's pouring into their life. It's pouring. And I just came to the conclusion where I'm like, look, sometimes you got to take a break. Sometimes you got to go hit Tulum for a week. Sometimes you got to do things that make you happy, regardless of, whether it's, I can remember talking to a friend or something, and he's like, you can just go with the guys to Tulum. Are you serious? That's like a thing. I'm like, why is it not? It makes me happy. Like it's needed. It's time to refresh. Like it's time to recharge. It's time to think differently. It's time to figure out, the next podcast I'm going to do that you guys will listen to is on the changes that I'm making, right? You need time like that, right? Stop making decisions. Stop conforming to the opinions of those around you that don't have to live with the consequences of those decisions. Think about that. That's a big one for you guys. Turn it off now. You're good to go, right? So do stuff that makes you happy. Number 4, learn something. Learn something. I was asked once, what do I do really well? What do I do better than other people? And I said, I learn better than anyone. That's what I do really well. And, there's this misnomer, especially amongst leaders. You guys hear all this stuff. There's all these cliches and sayings that so many of them are such bull crap. They've just lived on from year after year after year. One of them is this, and this is going to ruffle some feathers here. Leaders are readers. If I could see you, I'd say raise your hand if you've heard that one before. Leaders are readers. Guys, leaders are not readers. That's not true. Now, are some leaders readers? Yeah. Leaders are learners. How you learn has changed, right? Like that saying, was come up with like years and years ago when all there was books. But, now we have podcasts and YouTube and Audible and other people to learn from. And there's so many. Leaders are learners. Someone told me the other day, my goal for 2022, I'm going to read a book a week. I was like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Why would you read a book a week? If you're reading a book a week, how are you ever doing anything? Not to mention, look at my previous point, clarity. Guarantee you all those books have varying opinions. They disagree with each other. Just confusion, confusion, confusion. A book a week is either misguided or it's a humble brag. I'm going to do a book a week. How about read one book and spend the next year implementing it? That I would be impressed by. How about actually doing what it is that you're reading? Because leaders are not necessarily readers. They could be. That may be the form they like to learn. But leaders are learners, right? Learning comes in so many different. It's like saying, drivers are, horse and buggy drivers or whatever. Like there's so many different ways to drive now. There's so many different ways to be a captain. It could be a boat, it could be a car, it could be a jet, it's all transportation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that one thing when that saying was made. So leaders aren't necessarily readers, they could be, but leaders are learners, which brings me to my last point, which is, look, yes, we need to learn something, but the fifth point is do something. Do something, guys. Like I've been opening almost every single one of my events that I've done the last year. I've been opening with, look, doing something is better than overthinking an idea. Okay. Doing something is better than overthinking an idea, because when we live in our heads, we create problems that don't even exist. I just did a podcast with someone else and I said, look, guys, indecision is worse than no decision. Than a bad decision. Indecision is worse than a bad decision. It really is. It's almost like credit, right? If you go to get something, and you have no credit is worse than bad credit. If you go to a car dealership and you've got bad credit, they're like, okay, we can deal with this. If you go there and you have no credit, they can't deal with it. Like there's nothing they can do. And it's the same thing with decisions. Sometimes in an effort to not make a bad decision, we make no decision. And so indecision is worse than a bad decision, right? Because at least with a bad decision, I can make adjustments. I can learn from it. I can leverage that. I can whatever. Indecision just does nothing but waste time, right? And so ultimately doing something is better than overthinking an idea. It's great to be in that stage right before we're learning, the learn stage. But the only way that you actually get anywhere is you enter the next stage, which is the screw up stage. Screw something, like just get out there and do it. You got to do something. And that's scary for a lot of people, because then there's consequences to that. Now it's like, did you do well? Did you not do well? Did it work? Did it not work? Did it, there's all these things now. There's judgment behind it, right? But it is amazing to me how people will spend 5, 10, 20 minutes complaining about the people in their lives. They'll spend 5, 10, 20 minutes, whatever, but they won't spend that same amount of time fixing the problem. They'll spend 5, 10, 20 minutes complaining about how little money they have, but they won't spend 5, 10, 20 minutes doing something that's going to generate revenue, or coming up with ideas for how that's going to work, or, whatever it is. And I say this stuff not to criticize, guys. I say this to spark a fire, for people to have a realization and go, shoot, it's kind of sad and it's funny because it's true. Like that's me on many levels, right? And so as we head into the new year, like probably my number one point of advice is just do something, right? Don't spend all your time complaining about something. I have a rule, by the way. I don't like to hear gossip. My rule is, if I can't change the situation, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to just learn about it. I need to be able to do something about it. If I can't change that person's situation, I don't want to hear about it. It does nothing but fill my head with crap that I don't need to have in there. If I can't change it, if I can't be a force for change, don't tell me about it. That's my rule on gossip. Okay. It's poison. It's right. And the same thing is true. It's one thing to learn something, but you got to do something at the end of the day. Doing something is better than overthinking an idea, right? We create more problems in our head by living in our head. We create problems that don't even exist when we live in our head, okay? So number 1 is have a plan. Number 2 is create clarity. Number 3 is do stuff that makes you happy. Can't stress that one enough. Number 4 is learn something. And number 5 is ultimately do something, be about it. Okay. If you enjoyed this, guys, make sure you subscribe, leave a nice review. Always love that. A written and a 5-star. That would be really cool. On my next episode, I'm actually going to do on things I'm changing, and it's going to be kind of cool. So look out for that one to come out, guys. Share this with someone else. Really appreciate you listening to this. Really, really appreciate it. Hope I get a chance to see some of you in person this coming year at events that I'm doing all over. We just announced that our advance will be October 24th and 25th, the Jared James Advance in Nashville. Tickets are at the lowest price they're going to be right now. So make sure you go to jaredjamestoday.com/advance. As always, make sure you go to connectwithjared.com. Connect on all the platforms, guys, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, YouTube, TikTok, all these places, guys. Make sure you say hello. Can't wait to see you guys in person. Hope you enjoyed this. We're back to regular content. I hope you're happy about that. It's all free, so share it with someone else. Talk to you soon.